Well, hello, and we're coming to the end of chapter 11. In fact, we'll probably do all of it. Now, Lazarus has been raised from the dead. And we're going to see what the reaction to this was. So we'll read final 11 verses. I might do all of them. Therefore, reading from verse 45. Therefore, many of the Jews who had come to visit Mary had seen what Jesus did, believed in him. But some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. Then the chief priests and Pharisees called a meeting of the Sanhedrin. "What are we accomplishing?" they asked. Here is this man performing many signs. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him. And then the Romans will come and take away both our temple and our nation." Then one of them, named Caiaphas, who was high priest that year, spoke up. "You know nothing at all. You do not realize it is better for you that one man die for the people than that the whole nation perish." He did not say this on his own, but as high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus would die for the Jewish nation. And not only for the nation, but also for the scattered children of God, to bring them together and make them one. So from that day on, they plotted to take his life. Therefore, Jesus no longer moved about publicly among the people of Judea. Instead, he withdrew to a region near the wilderness, to a village called Ephraim, where he stayed with his disciples. When it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, many went up from the country to Jerusalem for their ceremonial cleansing before the Passover. They kept looking for Jesus, and as they stood in the temple courts, they asked one another, "What do you think? Isn't he come to the festival at all?" But the chief priests and Pharisees had given orders that anyone who found out where Jesus was should report it, so that they might arrest him. So what we get here is there's two things. One, the raising of Lazarus it's kind of the overture to the final events of Jesus' life here on earth, to the cross and to the resurrection. And then the second thing is we get such a range of reactions to this. First of all, many of the Jews, and here Jews is probably referring to Jews in general rather than to leaders, which is often the way it's used in John's Gospel. But here it's just referred to Jews in general. And many of them, see what happened. Lazarus is dead. Jesus raised him from the dead. And so they believed in him. But not all of them did this. You should always be aware that miracles would attract everyone, but they will attract some. Some will believe because of them, but some won't. Some of them went to the Pharisees. Now, they didn't go there, "Oh, look, isn't Jesus a great man?" They went because they wanted to keep in with the Pharisees and the Sadducees. They wanted to keep on the right side of them. They knew they were highly suspicious and, in fact, wanted to kill Jesus. So they went to them to keep on the right side of them. And this is a human frailty. When the Nazis were in control in Germany, there were ordinary people who would go and they would tell on their neighbours. They would give people away. They would side with the Nazis because it was in their favour to do so. In communist regimes like communist Russia, there were people who would side with the communists and the secret police. There will always be people who will do that, who will do horrendous things. And then the Pharisees learned of this. They said, "Look, if everyone's going to believe in Jesus if things carry on, we're achieving nothing." And then look at it says in 48, "And then the Romans will come and take away both our temple and our nation." The religious leaders wanted to keep on the right side of the Roman authorities. The Roman authorities gave them a certain degree of freedom, certain license to carry on as leaders in their community. But if there was trouble, if there was uprisings, rebellions, then they knew that the Romans would come down hard on them. So they didn't want any trouble. They didn't want or certainly not too much trouble. Now, of course, it's ironic. What happened here? They said that the Romans will come and take away both our temple and our nation. As we know, they had Jesus crucified. And in AD 70, the Romans did, well, they came here in 66. They would come and they did take away the temple and they did take away the nation. It's like, remember when the spies went into the promised land and all but 2 of them said, we'll all die if this happens. Our children will die, so we'll not go in. And what did happen? The children didn't die, but they all died. But anyway, Caiaphas, who is the high priest, speaks up and says, you know nothing at all. You do not realise it's better for one man to die for the people than the whole nation. And as John says, he's the effect he's prophesying. It says that without knowing what he was doing, he was prophesying that Jesus would die for the Jewish nation. Now look very carefully what it says in 51 to 53. It says he would die for the Jewish nation. And not only for the nation, but also for the scattered children of God, to bring them all together and to make them one. So we'll stop there. This will get too long. I want to talk about something related to that particular point. So, leave you hanging with great anticipation. What's he going to say next? So we'll leave that. I like to keep these videos fairly short. So we'll leave that and you'll have to wait till next week.